This video may seem a little weird, but lately I've realized something about my work. Small canvases don't really fit what I'm trying to say anymore. They're just not. And trust me, this will get into something that's applicable to you too, but it's not about bigger being better or trying to impress people, because you would be absolutely amazed at some of the most important pieces of art, like how small they actually are. Look up Salvador Dali's paintings sometime. Yeah, but they are, a lot of them are remarkably small. And you think of these, amazingly historical pieces of art, this being these big grand things, and a lot of them aren't. So it's definitely not about trying to impress people, because size has nothing to do with that. I paint intimate moments, but they're intimate moments with space, atmosphere, silence, tension around them. And lately I've kind of come to this thing where, 8 by 10 canvases kind of start feeling less like a choice and more like a limitation, with the kind of paintings that I do. And there've been a couple of painters that have, jokingly and friendly, but you could tell there's a little bit of venom behind it, that I'm doing it to up my prices or feel more important or whatever, which is not the case. I think every artist eventually reaches a point where their work starts demanding something different from them. And with every artist, it's not always bigger canvas. Sometimes with artists, it has nothing to do even with the canvas. Sometimes it's, mediums or conceptual things. Your style evolves naturally. I think a lot of people try to force a style way too early. You have to play, you have to experiment, you have to see what makes sense to you within your limitations. See that drum set back there? I play, I'm jazz trained, but I play a lot of heavy metal music and stuff too. I know my physical limitations. I'll never be able to do some things with that double bass pedal with my feet with, two bass drums. I'll never be able to do some things that other people can do. So when I cover a song that has, fast double bass in it, and I do certain things to still get through the song and make it sound good, to the audience, which they don't hear half of that stuff anyway. It's just being able to, you still need to move and improve and get better and grow, as an artist, especially a musician. But a physical limitation is a physical limitation. My legs just do not move that fast. And you would think, me being a drummer, I'm coordinated enough to do the heel toe stuff and all that, which I can kind of do. But yeah, half of the people that you see on Instagram, a lot of the stuff you hear on, especially heavy metal albums now, they're all bass drum triggers. I know I'm getting like super technical with you, but still grow and still learn and challenge yourself and push yourself. But a limitation is a limitation. A lot of people try to force a style way too early. They want a recognizable voice before they've even fully explored themselves creatively and noticed what their own shortcomings are, and being able to party with them and use them as a vehicle. But style usually develops naturally through repetition, time, most importantly, curiosity, maybe even a little bit of obsession sprinkled in there. I should do the shoulder, with the salt that comes down, like sprinkle. Yeah, I want to eat something with a bunch of salt that's been through somebody's arm hair. You ever seen that guy? Your style, your voice, it comes from what you repeatedly return to without realizing it. Like the style that you always seem to gravitate toward, or a subject matter, or a thing that you just feel more is you. And you don't do that. You don't naturally find that until you start really experimenting. And just like with the drums, you don't want to stay stuck and stagnant in something your whole life. But when you find your voice, you'll know the difference. You're not being stagnant. You just learned how to speak. Your creative voice slowly reveals itself, I think, through patterns that you did not consciously plan. Because it's your voice. That's naturally you. There is no correct artist voice. There's no such thing. And there goes my phone. Guerrilla filming at its finest. But like I was saying, there is no correct artist voice. Some artists thrive on tiny, intimate canvases packed with detail. Others need large spaces, like I do, loose movement and room for emotion to breathe. And as I've gravitated more toward my voice and found out really what I was doing and what I'm saying, I found out that small canvases just don't cut it, for my kind of style. Doesn't mean I won't use them. It's still good to force limitations and put yourself in a box and see if you can work with it, See if you can decorate the paper bag you put yourself in. That's fun, and you should still do that. But, the large spaces, the loose movement, room for emotion to breathe, all that stuff. Some people thrive on the tiny canvases. But I'm here to debunk something. I mean, neither is more valid than the other. Artistic voice is deeply personal because it reflects how you emotionally experience the world. The important thing is discovering what genuinely feels aligned with you instead of copying what feels impressive online. And I know I keep going back to the drums, but what's impressive online usually includes things that you would use like movie magic or studio magic. Things like triggers. Nobody does it in one take. Or either that or they, screw up for hours and hours and hours and they got that one magic take and that's what you see. I mean, finding your voice does not mean locking yourself into one thing forever. I'm not saying that. Experimentation is just part of how you discover what feels authentic. Sometimes you have to try things that completely fail in order to understand what actually belongs to you. And that's why you shouldn't get discouraged by the failures, because it's those failures that lead you to realize what your voice is. You know what I mean? The failures are necessary. When I first started, for every one piece of art that I completed, I probably threw 5 away. Then once I got a little bit better and kind of found out, I think I'm going to kind of start painting this kind of stuff, I would throw away probably 3. There would be 3 failed paintings. And now, about 99% of the time, I can put on the canvas what I intended to put on the canvas. There's rare cases where one is just screwed and I'm like, no, it's not going to work. Very rarely now I have a failed painting. But yeah, like I said, sometimes you have to try things that completely bomb, in order to understand what actually belongs to you. Creative growth often it happens through contrast. You dig what I'm saying? The goal isn't to avoid experimentation. The goal is to notice what keeps pulling you back, what keeps drawing you back in. That insatiable kind of voice in your head that says, this is what I should be doing. This is the kind of style I should be focusing on. This is what I should be trying to say. The internet makes it really tempting to chase whatever style is popular at the moment. Trends can quietly disconnect artists from themselves. It happens. I mean, you could end up making work that performs well, but doesn't actually feel like yours. I think that creates kind of a weird emptiness, where your work gets attention, but it loses its identity. I think that a recognizable artistic voice usually comes from honesty, not trend chasing. And if you're honest with yourself, there's weird things that are going to pop up that no artist does, that kind of don't make sense, that kind of go against, or, like me, will get your peers to accuse you of trying to be all big and awesome and important by making bigger canvases, as if that matters. You go to the Louvre and see the Mona Lisa, that thing is tiny. That is a small painting. But look at the impact it has. Canvas size does completely change how a piece feels emotionally, and I will die on this hill. But only for a certain kind of painting. It's not like that across the board with every kind of painting. You know what I mean? A larger canvas creates breathing room, atmosphere. With this kind of stuff that I do, will it create breathing room and atmosphere for, say, for every other kind of style? No. For the stuff that I do, and make sure go on my website if you kind of see what I mean. Yeah, my website is in the description, but yeah, check out the kind of art that I do, and you'll kind of see what I mean. A larger canvas does create breathing room and atmosphere for the kind of stuff that I do. I mean, it allows silence, tension, isolation, and presence to exist differently. For me personally, I started realizing the emotional weight I wanted was not fitting into smaller formats anymore. The work itself started asking for more physical space. And that's okay. Don't ignore things like that, because that's your artistic voice telling you things, despite what you hear from other people and despite what their little theories are, you know? And it often doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense, because you would think somebody who's only 4 years into painting that's trying to make this a full-time thing and is relatively new to all this, you would think that I would be focusing on smaller canvases, panels, prints, not these big honking things. Because despite what level you're at or what pricing strategy that you use, a smaller canvas will be cheaper. And you want to have more cost-effective things. Well, the way I see it, that's what prints are for. But it does go against common sense, but you can't ignore your voice. I honestly think that artistic voice comes from mileage more than inspiration. Inspiration is such a fleeting thing. You don't feel inspired all the time, but you need to work on your art all the time. You make enough work, and eventually, it just happens. Certain themes, moods, and decisions repeat naturally. You begin noticing the kinds of moments that you're obsessed with. You notice the lighting you always return to, the emotions you revisit, the color you instinctively reach for. Don't ignore that stuff. That's usually the beginning of a real artistic identity forming. And especially when you're first starting out, when you start selling your work and you got the website up and all that stuff, that's number 2 on the list of things that are going to sell your art the most, is having a consistent voice. You want to know what number 1 is? Number 1, people don't buy the art, they buy the artist. So make sure that they know you personally. They know your struggles. They know, and I'm talking about, don't get into parasocial relationships, but, because we are online and you have to be careful. But show them your struggle. Show them your thoughts. Show them your history. Talk to them about yourself. Let them know you, your unique, awesome self. Because 9 times out of 10, people just don't buy the piece of art. They buy the artist. I think one of the hardest things creatively is giving yourself permission to stop imitating everyone else. You know what I mean? Every artist starts through influence, yes, but eventually influence has to become transformation, or else you're a parody. People say imitation's the greatest form of flattery. To an artist, a real one, imitation is the greatest form of someone without an original thought in their freaking head. I've been imitated a lot. I do a certain style of painting, and if you look at them, you'll say, wow, this guy's a big fan of Goya, Francis Bacon, Bashinsky, H.R. Geiger, a little bit in there. But it's not their work. I was just kind of drawn to that style, but it's in my voice. It's kind of like, just because you're a musician doesn't mean you have to invent a genre when you get yourself out there. Within the genre, you can do limitless things. You you can admire people without being trapped inside their visual language. At some point, this is going to scare some of you because it did scare me when I first started. At some point, you have to risk sounding like yourself. That's uncomfortable because your own voice does feel unfamiliar at first. It's like with me working in radio for 1 million years. The first time you hear your voice recorded, you're like, oh, is that what I sound like? Because mostly what you hear of your own voice, your own perception of your own voice, is caused by the vibrations in your own head, being locked in this meat puppet of yours. I think artistic voice is tied deeply to life experience. The things you've survived, the things you're afraid of, loved, regretted, they kind of leak into the work. They should, anyway, if you're honest. That's why older artists sometimes suddenly develop powerful voices later in life. They finally have enough emotional material to draw from honestly. Your work becomes less about impressing people and more about communicating something real. That's why I don't paint. Have I done landscapes and stuff before? Yeah. There's a watercolor one right there. I've done landscapes and stuff before, but I've stopped doing them because they don't feel honest. They're not honest. I paint people because I am a person and I can relate to them. I know a lot of people can relate to a pretty landscape or paintings of horses and ducks and cows and tractors and whatever else, cityscapes. I know empty streets. I know some people can relate. Still lives. I love still lives, by the way, and I'll tell you why. But I live in a different world and I can't relate to that kind of stuff. I can relate to being a person. So I paint people in these kind of dark, intimate moments. The still moments, when life changes, like forever. And when life changes forever, it often doesn't happen with big, grandiose fireworks. It happens when you're still and quiet, very much alone. That's what I'm chasing. So, all that stuff, the landscapes and the still life, I love still lives, but they just don't feel honest to me. And if you're not honest, like I said many times, the canvas will figure you out. It will figure you out. And your paintings, even if they don't fail, they won't be complete, man, and you'll notice it. I paint dark stuff, and I think still life is about the darkest thing that you can paint. I think that's the most doom driven, darkest, other side of the battery, glasses empty thing you can possibly paint is a still life. Because everything in a still life painting, and this is just how I see it. A lot of people, might not see it this way, but the way that I personally see it is that everything in a still life painting is either dead or dying. Everything is either inanimate, or if it's, a fruit, or an apple, vegetable, a flower. Flowers are big in still life paintings. They're cut. They're in a vase. Nothing is attached to the vine. Everything in a still life painting is either dead or dying. I think a still life painting represents more about death than painting death itself. I think that's the darkest stuff you can paint. But I don't feel honest painting still lives either, even though I've done a lot of them. They're fun. And sometimes I paint them when I want to just play around and goof off and have fun. But see, some artists are really, really scared of finding their voice because it makes the work more personal. You're exposing yourself. People are getting to see you, the real you. You can't hide from canvas. You can, and it's the only medium I've seen where it's like that. Books, you can mask that who you are. Music, you can do that. Painting, I don't know what it is about that canvas, man. It will it will figure you out if you're not honest. And there's no getting around it. Once your style becomes recognizable, people will start seeing more of you inside it, which goes back to that number one thing. People buy the artist more than they do the painting. And when you actually get to the physical process of making the painting in particular, but this works with every kind of art, it has to start from that place of honesty. Even if you're hiding behind the corner just a little bit, like you can get away with in books and music and stuff like that. But it's got to start from that place. Being able to see you. That vulnerability can be really, really intimidating. I know it can. And that's stopping a lot of you from pursuing your artistic goals. I know. I know. But I think meaningful art usually requires some level of emotional exposure. The work becomes way stronger when it stops hiding. I'm going to throw this phone out the window. Your artistic voice is probably already forming, whether you're realizing it or not. Just lean into it. I mean, it's hidden inside your habits, your instincts, your interests, your emotional reactions. Don't force it into existence. I mean, you kind of uncover it over time. And honestly, I think that process is one of the most rewarding parts of becoming an artist. Can it be frustrating? Can it be scary as hell? Yes. But it's not about becoming perfect. It's becoming unmistakably yourself. And then when people get, clap back at you and say, oh, you're just doing large canvases to be important and, all that. So you're just like, no, I'm honing in what makes my voice more accurate and more honest. So if you're ever faced with anything like that, why do you only record singles? Why are you playing an oboe when you're better at violin? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's a voice thing. Now you got some perspective. Because that's kind of what I've been going through lately and what's driven me a lot. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately. So I kind of wanted to toss it out there for all of you. But anyway, that's what I had on my mind. We will see you again here soon. We'll see you again here sometime. Still plugging away. Still working on the art. Still painting all the time. Not quite at that full-time painter thing yet. I will let you know when we achieve that. But I sell a painting every once in a while. I think I have developed my voice. I've developed a remarkable, recognizable thing that I think is me. And I'm chipping away at anything that really isn't that. That kind of helps me to explain that the best. And canvases are a big part of it. But yeah, still have my work in galleries and stuff like that. I've actually been tossing around the idea of taking a break from the galleries just for this next year. Not paying any gallery, not having anything in galleries just for this next year, because I want to kind of not be distracted by those things. And on top of that, I want to see how strong I can make online sales, to see if I can, just to see what I could do with that if that's my only option. Does that make any sense? Like really lean into just online sales and see if I can make that work. But yeah, I'll let you know, because I do want this to be about, my artistic journey and where I'm going to, and kind of taking you along for it. So that's really what's happening right now. We'll do that segment like at the end. Every time we do one of these videos, we'll do like a what's happening now thing. Just tossing the idea around of not doing galleries next year, not doing any shows next year, and just seeing what we can do with just online sales, website, focusing on that stuff, really honing in on what my voice is, art-wise, and just letting the galleries chill for a while. I think that's kind of the way to go. because I've only been painting for 4 years and I'm already in galleries and all that stuff. I feel like there's some things that I kind of missed, that artists go through pre-gallery, and I kind of want to experience that and see how it can help me. But anyway, guys, I'll catch you later. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next time. Okay? Okay.